hell no.
John Fate.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you not a big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands thrown up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
They have no swag. They have no nothing.
Terrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. My name is Rob Dauster. I am joined today by Jeff Goodman, and we are live on YouTube and streaming over on Stadium. Got a lot to get to today, Jeff. We're going to break down the ACC and talk a little bit about the winners and the losers in that conference. We're also going to take a look at some of BetMGM's national title futures. There are a couple of interesting lines there that I want to pick your brain on because I think some of them Indiana are way underpriced for the amount of talent that is on that roster. Yeah, here I go. But before we do all of that, there was some season-altering news and some game-changing news in the world of college basketball yesterday. Dan Hurley decided that he is going to be coming back to UConn instead of jumping to the NBA and taking the Lakers job. Now that we've had about 24 hours to kind of look back on this and think about this and reflect on this, what are your biggest takeaways on how real this decision was and how torn Dan was on actually leaving?
No, I think it was real. I mean, I think it was certainly real. He went and flew all the way out to LA and met with Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss, and you're not doing that just for attention. You're doing that because you're actually thinking about this. And, you know, again, I'm not sure he was ever at a point where he was all in with going to the Lakers, but I think there were moments there throughout the days. I'm told there were moments where he thought, hey, listen, I might do this. I might actually do this. But, you know, ultimately, I think, again, it came down to comfortability. It came down to the fact that why leave a really good thing right now? And enjoy kind of what you've built up, Rob. I feel like that's a part of this that people aren't talking enough about. The fact that this dude has grinded to get to this point his entire career, living in the shadow of his father as a coach, his brother as a player. And now you're the guy. You're the guy that everybody's talking about right now. Why start over? Why have to go to the NBA and people question you over and over and over? It's to win a title with the Lakers. It's that right now. So why not enjoy what you built at UConn, give it a shot for a three-peat, and to be honest, yeah, you may never get enough or quite at the level of the prestige of the LA Lakers, but I think you'll have other NBA offers that if you're so locked in to wanting to give that a shot in 3 or 5 years, you could still do that.
Yeah, and you know, the whole dynamic of having his family on the East Coast and having basically spent the entirety of his life in New Jersey, in New York, in Connecticut, in Rhode Island, kind of in that tri-state area on that I-95 corridor, I do think is something that is relevant in this conversation. And it's also important to note there's a team in Philadelphia, there's a team in Brooklyn, there's a team in Manhattan, and there's a team in Boston that kind of fall into those corridors that may or may not have job openings here at some point in the next few years, if that's the move that he really wants to make. One thing that I keep coming back to, Jeff, and I'm curious your opinion on this, is I kind of keep thinking about Ed Cooley in this conversation. And the reason that I do is that he left a job where he kind of built it up to a point where it was about as successful as it could be, right? And then and Providence still probably has a little bit of a ceiling there, but he had that thing rolling, and he left it for what was on paper a better job. And I wonder, after seeing what's happened this past season for Ed at Georgetown, and what's happened this past spring in the portal, and kind of how everything has played out in the 15 months since he left Providence for Georgetown, there's an element of don't mess with happiness, right? Like if you're at a place and you like the job and you've made the job yours and you've turned it into something that is elite and you're able to keep it rolling there, and you're never going to find yourself in a situation where you could end up being fired, right? Like there's a level of, if I'm happy where I am and I'm making more money than I'm going to be able to spend, why would I leave that to go take something and start from the bottom? Like I do I keep coming back to Ed Cooley when I'm thinking about Dan's decision here. Is that crazy?
Yeah, you think about Ed Cooley way
All
too
the time.
much. I think it's also about coaching, Rob. I think it's about coaching and the ability to impact people. And I think he realized, like, also if I go to the Lakers, can I really impact not just LeBron and AD, but even like a kid like Austin Reeves, right? He's been in the league a while now. Rui Hachimura, like they're going to be coachable, but not in the same way, obviously, that you're impacting, Aiden Mahaney this season, Terrace Reed, Alex Caraman, who's come back. It's a different level of coaching. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Not a lot of practice time in the NBA. He talked to, I'm sure, Billy Donovan plenty here. And yeah, certain players are going to be more receptive to coaching, but the stars, you really think if he calls a play to LeBron and LeBron doesn't want to run it, like LeBron's going to look at him just like Russell Westbrook did with Billy Donovan, look at him and be like, come on, man, like really, I'm running what the hell I want to run here. And there's just a measure of, again, right now, Dan Hurley has the ultimate in stores. He can do whatever the hell he wants. He runs that program, that state right now. He runs it. He do whatever he wants. Enjoy that. And again, to me, I just felt like it was a feel thing talking to people close to Dan Hurley, and he just felt like now is not the right time.
Yeah, I agree. And you have a chance to do something that has never been done in his lifetime, I don't believe. And that's go back to back. You know what kind of frustrated me about this entire process was how it turned into something where it was the NBA versus college basketball. And this is a chance for the NBA to put the nail in the coffin of college basketball. And let's find a way how one human being's decision on whether or not he wants to go coach at this job or this job is going to be a referendum on the state of college basketball and whether or not college basketball is dying or still alive. Like that drove me absolutely insane in listening to it.
Yeah, because Dan Hurley's a different dude. Like his decision isn't a referendum on college basketball or the NBA or the Lakers job for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
It was an individual personal decision that, again, how many people had a program that they've built? How many people had his story, right? How many people had his story, Rob? And how many people are wired like Dan Hurley? Very few. My guess is if the Lakers came to Tony Bennett and they said, hey, the job's available, Tony Bennett would probably say, hey, you know what? I'll take my shot at the LA Lakers. And my guess is 95%, maybe more, maybe 99% of the college coaches, other than like Bill Self, I'm trying to think of who else wouldn't take the Lakers job right now. Like who do you think would potentially turn down the Lakers job right now in college basketball other than Dan Hurley? Bill Self, maybe?
Self, maybe. I could see Matt Painter saying thanks, but no thanks, and staying at Purdue. But I don't like the list does not go all that much longer than that. Like there's very, very few that would say no to it. I will just say though that since we're on the topic, if the coach at UConn is saying thanks but no thanks to both the University of Kentucky and the Los Angeles Lakers in the span of 3 months, I think that it pretty much proves the fact that UConn is the basketball capital of the world and the greatest basketball team on the planet, regardless of NBA or college. And Jeff, I think now, I know you hate UConn. I know you're biased against UConn, but now I think you have to agree. You have no choice but to agree at this point.
Honestly,
back-to-back titles, and the coach just said no thanks to Lexington and no thanks to Los Angeles. You got to give us credit. Come on, give us some flowers. You got to do it.
I love UConn. If it weren't for you, I really would love UConn. But because of you, there's a part of me that, yes, watching UConn win 2 national titles is painful for me because, again, you are hard to deal with the success of Dan Hurley and UConn the last couple of years, but just kind of wild. Like, again, I understand the situation, but it's kind of wild when you put it in that context, right? Dan Hurley right now could be walking around LA. Andrea could be walking down Rodeo Drive. He's doing his introductory press conference. LeBron's there potentially. And instead, this dude is evaluating 16-year-old high school players at the top 100 camp down in Orlando.
The wild part about it to me is that he legitimately thought that he was going to be fired in January of 2023. Like, he had to have his agent and his wife basically sit him down and say, you need to pull your head out of your ass and get this figured out, because what you're doing right now is going to ruin it for everybody. And he found a way to make it work. I do want to ask you a quick question, because our friends over at Sleepers Media put out a list of the top 10 college basketball programs set up for success in the next 10 years. Now, I made fun of them a little bit for this because they had UConn 8th and 9th respectively. They did put that out before the news that Dan Hurley came back, so I will give them a little bit of credit. I'm still going to make fun of them for it, but I still will give them the benefit of the doubt there. Who would you have at the top of your list? Like, how does that kind of shake out for you? Because the way that I look at it, when you consider where Kelvin Sampson is kind of in terms of his career and his age, where Bill Self is, I probably would have UConn and Alabama at number 1 and number 2 for me. Is that a crazy take?
No, I mean, not crazy. I probably would have Kansas in there at 1 for me, because I don't think Bill Self 10 years. I don't know if he makes it till 71, but I think he makes it to like 68. Okay, so I think Bill Self gives you 7 more years, and whoever Kansas hires, we know is going to be an elite coach, right? They're going to have their pick of pretty much whoever's out there for the most part at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They've got money, right? They're in the Big 12. They've got enough money, TV revenue. They've got a great conference, all that. So I would probably go Kansas 1, UConn 2. And I'm not sure I'd go Alabama 3 yet. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I want to see it a little bit longer for Nate Oates. But obviously what he's done so far. And Kelvin, that's the hard part, right? Is Kelvin's getting up there. I bet Kelvin has 3 years left, would be my guess, somewhere around there. And then Kellen takes over, who I love, and I think he's going to be really good. But to keep it up at that level at Houston would be difficult to kind of predict. So I don't think I'd have Houston in my top 5. I would have Kansas 1, UConn 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think Kellen will do a good job. I don't know if he will do a good job, as good of a job as his dad, because there are maybe, I think the only people that you could actually say that have done a better job than his dad over the course of the last 6 years are the 2 guys that you just mentioned, Dan Hurley and Bill Self. So that's if you're putting that level of expectation on Kellen when he takes over the job, like, it's almost assuredly he's going to fall short of it. So I don't want to do that to him. I would have Houston in my top 10 though. Who else would you have up there? I'm bullish on where John Shire is headed with this Duke program. I'm also very bullish on where Hubert Davis is headed with that North Carolina program. But the one that's kind of interesting to me in this conversation is Gonzaga, right? Like, we just saw Mark Few take a team that we thought was the end of the beginning of the end of the Gonzaga run and the Gonzaga dynasty, take them to a 5 seed, bring everybody back, and now have them as a top 5 team in America. He's another guy. I don't know how long he's going to be there, but it's very hard for me to not at least have Gonzaga in the conversation of the top 5 of this list.
Yeah, I would not have him in the top 5. I would not have him. No way. Because, again, I think Mark Few's gone within 3-5 years. So, to me, Bill Self, I think, gives you a little bit more. They've got more in terms of, obviously, like Gonzaga, too. You worry about their league right now. You worry about it, right? Like, where are they going to be? There's just too many uncertainties with the Gonzaga program beyond the next 3 years. I would say another one you got to look at is Baylor in the top 10 somewhere because of Scott Drew, because of the league, because of the money, all of that. He's not going anywhere. Like, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for stability or an elite program that no matter what happens, they're going to be fine. Like, another one that worries me a little bit, Michigan State. What's going to happen? I think Izzo goes maybe 3-5 more years again. And who's next at Michigan State? We don't know that. So that's what I'm kind of worried about with Gonzaga. I would not.
What about Kentucky?
Boy, you got to see it first with Pope. Like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there with Kentucky. I'm not there with Louisville. You need to see it, and we've seen the dips with Kentucky, whether it was Bully Clyde Gillespie, whether it was Calipari the last few years. You've seen the dips with Kentucky enough that you worry about whether they're going to keep it at that level. Like, I feel good about Baylor. Like, I don't think Baylor's going to take a big dip, do you, in the next 10 years? Because I don't think Scott Drew's going anywhere. So I think Baylor is going to sustain success over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Baylor thing. I don't think I'm with you on the Kentucky thing. To be honest, like, there's so much uncertainty with all of this stuff. I don't know how many coaches we're going to see do what Bill Self has done, or do what Coach K did, or do what Roy Williams did, and spend 10, 15, 20 years at a specific program, right? Do what Jay Wright did. So I tend to lean towards the programs that have the pedigree when it comes to this conversation, right? I would put UConn and Alabama at the top, and then I think I round out the rest of my list with with Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky and Kansas, and those teams that you just know that investment is going to be there.
So, okay, Kentucky to Arizona. Which one are you picking? If you had to pick Kentucky or Arizona for the next 10 years, who are you picking?
I would probably lean towards Kentucky, because I don't know if you can guarantee me that Tommy Lloyd is going to be there for the long term. And once Tommy's gone,
where's he going? Where?
I don't know.
He's not going back.
What happens if one of these other jobs open up? He to me, he strikes me as the kind of guy that could end up going to the NBA if a job opens up. Right? Like, I feel like he could be a guy that could coach in the league.
You got to get to a Final Four or win a national title to have the NBA even have you anywhere near their radar.
Yeah, but I'm for me with Arizona, it would be much more tied to who the coach is than who Kentucky is, and I feel who would have guessed 10 years ago that we would be sitting here saying maybe the three best coaches in America are Dan Hurley, Nate Oates, and Scott Drew. Like, Scott Drew 10 years ago was a guy we all said could not coach. Nate Oates 10 years ago was literally selling bags of chips in the lunchroom to be able to fund Romulus High trips to tournaments, right? Dan Hurley 10 years ago, was he at Wagner? Was he at Rhode Island last year? Like, no one could have predicted these
at the beginning of his Rhode Island tenure.
Yeah, like 10 years is just such a long time that I would tend to lean towards the programs that are blue bloods. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I necessarily would have Kentucky above Arizona. Frankly, I'd have both of them in my top 10. But I think that that's kind of where I would go with it. I'd also have Purdue in that conversation as well, get them way up there. And I think we kind of hit on all the big ones. But yeah, it's wild how much can change over the course of the 10 years. Listen, when we get back, I want to dive into some of these title futures and some of these lines that you can kind of get on BetMGM right now, because there are a couple of picks that are quite interesting. And I'll be honest, Jeff, you know how we talk about how there's a big 3 in college basketball this year? According to BetMGM, we got to put a 4th team in that mix. I'll tell you who that is coming up next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark, live here on YouTube and streaming over on Stadium Dan Hurley is back in college basketball, and that means that UConn is still
never
the
left.
favorite.
What
The
do you mean back?
co-favorite.
He never left.
Was he in LA or no?
He never left college basketball. Like you make it sound like he left and he's coming back. He didn't go anywhere.
Was he in LA?
Yeah, he took a trip. He wanted to buy Andrea. He wanted Andrea to be able to go on a shopping spree. That's all that was about.
If they let Andrea loose on Rodeo Drive, I don't think that Dan Hurley would be back at UConn right now. I think that he would currently have to downsize the house that he would need because Andrea would have spent too much money.
Hey, you know why I'm happiest? You know why I'm happiest about his decision, by the way?
Because she's back.
He agreed that he was going to let us do a show from the Weirdo Room. So, like this is big for us. I mean, this is big. We're going to get down to Stores or wherever his house is. I can't remember where he lives, but we won't divulge that anyway. And we're going to do a show here at some point in the summer or maybe early in the season from the Weirdo Room.
Everyone knows where he lives already. You want to know how I know that? Because there were postings of the Zillow of his house going around on Twitter.
How much is it worth?
It's not on the market yet. It's not on the market
What's
yet.
it worth?
A lot. more than my house.
The Zillow price. What's the
more
Zillow
than my
price?
house? There was 2 commas and a crooked number in front.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope. I do think, and we'll get to the futures here in a second, but I do think it is important to note that we always have these conversations about who the most powerful people are in college athletics. Well, Andrea Hurley kept Dan Hurley from going to take the Lakers job. Is she the most powerful person in college basketball in this day and age in 2024?
I mean, she certainly was this week, right? She was the number one when you put down the list of most powerful people. Maybe we need to put a graphic on that. As of this week, Andrea Hurley has no rival.
It is hilarious to me that some of the credit is being given to a person for sustaining the UConn dynasty that doesn't even know what a pick and roll is.
Yeah, no. You think Providence fans are happy that Andrea is back?
Well, now they might actually get a chance to throw something else at her at a Providence UConn game. So, all right, let's get into these title features because as it stands today, June 10th, 2024, Kansas and UConn are considered the co-favorites to win the national championship, according to BetMGM. They're both at 10-1 odds, plus 1,000. Alabama's at 14-1, plus 1,400. Goodman, Duke slid in there as a potential top 3 team at plus 1,300, 13-1. If you bet $100, you win $1,300 on BetMGM if Duke wins a national championship. In your mind, does Duke belong in that same conversation, in that same tier as Kansas, UConn, Duke, and Alabama? I am on record saying that I think that Alabama should be the number 1 team in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think Duke's right behind them, but obviously Duke's got the cachet, the name, and oh, by the way, we're going to talk about the ACC here in a little bit. You know, I feel like we're already in mid-June, and we have really not talked about Cooper Flagg a whole lot, and people haven't talked about the impending arrival of Cooper Flagg to college basketball. Now, he's already on campus in Durham, but I just feel like it's not there yet. And I felt like it would be. I felt like people would be talking more about Cooper Flagg, but because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, I think if this had happened 5 years ago, we'd be talking about it ad nauseum, and other people would as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think Duke's got some cachet because of their name, because Tyrese Proctor's back, Caleb Foster's back, and they bring in the number 1 player in the country, who a lot of people feel like is a generational type talent. I'm not sure he's generational, but I think he's so unique in what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have plenty of stuff to say about Cooper Flagg. I don't think he's generational because I think that his superpower and his star power is being able to make everyone around him as good as they can be. And I kind of feel like the air quotes generational guys are the ones that are going to average like 28, 14, 3 blocks and score 83 points
Dominate a
when you
game.
need them.
Can
Yeah,
just dominate a game. Give him the ball
No,
and
dominate
make
a box score. Like I think he will dominate games, but it's not going to be the kind of performances where you look in the box score and say, "Oh yeah, he dominated that game." It's not going to be like Zion Williamson where you look up and he had 32, 12 and 6 assists. Like I think Cooper will be like 18 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, 3 blocks, 3 steals. And anyone that sits down and breaks down the film realizes he shut down everything on the side of the floor that he was on. And the ball just moves better when he's out. Like I think he'll be one of those guys that really impacts winning. So after you get outside that top 4, we have Houston at 16-1, North Carolina 17-1, Baylor at 20-1, Gonzaga at 21, and then Arkansas, Arizona, Purdue, Iowa State, Auburn, all of those teams are 25 or 30-1 odds. Is there anyone in there that you like? You think there's good value? You think maybe people are sleeping on a little bit?
I mean, I love Ole Miss at 8,000-1, right? That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. I mean, just for like sprinkling a few bucks. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win it all, but man, those odds, when you go down the list and you see Ole Miss that far down, it surprises me a little.
I will look. Let's be honest here. I want to provide a little bit of clarity for why Jeff Goodman is making this decision. I'm going to put a little bit of behind the scenes context into this, and our producer Trevor can attest to this. There is nobody on this here planet Earth that loves cashing out a bet more than Jeff Goodman does. So his entire plan here is he's going to bet his net worth on Ole Miss at 8,000-1 or plus 8,000 at 80-1. Wait till that odds comes down to like 25-1 and hit that cash out button. That's all he's trying to do. So if you're going to make this bet, just make sure you're ready to cash out once those odds go down, because that is all Jeff wants to do in this situation. Tell me I'm wrong, Jeff, and don't lie to the people.
No, you're right to some degree. I also like Iowa State. I mean, they're behind a lot of these schools that I think Iowa State right now, they have a recipe. I don't know if they have the highest ceiling to be able to do this and win the whole thing, but most people are going to have Iowa State as a top 5-ish preseason team, and rightfully so. They bring back, their top 3 players, including Lipsey, who's one of the best point guards in the country. So I just feel like, again, maybe in this day and age, the beauty for them is, again, retention, culture, chemistry, enough talent. So I think I like Iowa State there. What are they at right now? What are they, Rob? Plus 3,000?
Plus 3,000, 30-1.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. I mean, they're behind Purdue, Arkansas, Arizona, Gonzaga, all those teams. For me, they'd be like right on the fringe of top 5. So those are 2 that stick out to me as much as anybody.
I have a couple more that stick out. I'm gonna throw these at you, right? Xavier and Villanova are both 66-1 odds, which is honestly baffling to me. You mentioned Ole Miss at 80-1. Well, Texas Tech and Maryland are both going to end up being preseason top 25 teams, and they're both 100-1 right now. Louisville plus 10,000, 100-1. Wake Forest, who just got a potential first-team All-American coming back to school, is 125-1. BetMGM, as of today, does not have odds up for or lines for win totals or odds on winning league championships. But if you want to take swings on some of those teams like that, those are the ones that right now are, I think, really mispriced. Mispriced according to BetMGM. Like Wake Forest at 125-1 is just baffling to me, especially when they're getting Hunter Salas back.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I think that would be one of those like Ole Miss that I'd put a little bit of money down and then cash out when they start winning and maybe they get off to a good start. It's all about the cash out, Robert. All about the cash out.
Look, the cash out king over here. When we were in Vegas for the first weekend of the tournament, you would literally put down a bet and immediately say, all right, got to figure out when I can cash this thing out. And half those bets ended up winning. They ended up hitting.
Yeah, you screwed me. Admit it. You screwed me on, who was it? You totally killed me on one of them. I was ready to go, and you convinced me to stick with it. And pretty much
Grand
that's
Canyon.
why I have to sell. That's why I have to sell my house now, because I didn't cash out that bet.
Yeah, that's exactly why you have to sell your house. What about Kentucky? Let's talk about those Wildcats. At 35-1, it feels weird that we're having a conversation about teams that can win a national title in college basketball. And I have to say, what about Kentucky? But sitting there 35-1, they're behind Auburn in the SEC, they're behind Arkansas in the SEC, and they're behind Alabama in the SEC, sitting there with the same at the same price as Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I don't think they're a national title contender right now. I got to see more of them. I just don't think any of these teams, Rob, the Arkansas, the Kentuckys, the Louisvilles, that have a new coach and had to bring in an entirely new team, I don't think any of them have a shot of winning 6 straight in the NCAA tournament. I just don't think you can do that. I don't think you can build a program from scratch in 1 year and win the whole thing. Can you maybe win 3, 4, get to the Final Four? Sure. But then a big boy or two are probably waiting for you that have some retention, that have some culture already established, that have some guys back. And, so I don't see any of those teams. I wouldn't.
All right, you know what?
Again,
I'm going to put you to the test here. Let's do this. Let's pick out all the teams that you right now on June 10th can see actually winning a national championship. And this will be perfect because Trevor is going to clip this out. He's going to post it on YouTube. He's going to title it, "These are the 10 teams that can win a national title." And we are going to get called clickbait monsters. And you will be absolutely correct in that. So I'll go down the list and you tell me whether or not you think that they can win a national title this season. Kansas.
We'll get to 10. Let's get to 10. And then we call it a day.
Kansas.
Absolutely.
UConn.
Absolutely.
Duke.
Yes.
Me too. Alabama.
Absolutely.
Houston.
Absolutely.
North Carolina.
No.
I would go with yes for North Carolina. Baylor.
Yes.
Gonzaga.
No.
Arizona.
No.
Arkansas.
No.
Purdue.
Yes.
Iowa State.
Yes.
Auburn.
Yes.
So that's our 10 right there. You got those, Trev. Auburn, Iowa State, Purdue, Baylor, Houston, Alabama, Duke, UConn.
I want one more.
Okay.
Creighton. I want Creighton in there.
Creighton. There you go. Those are the 10 teams that can win a national title this year, according to Jeff Goodman. I find it very interesting that you don't have North Carolina on that list when they have a guy. Look, we hyped up Mark Sears when he decided to come back to school as the potential national player of the year. Well, RJ Davis is going to be right there in that conversation as well. And I think that they have some good pieces around them. I absolutely would have North Carolina in that conversation. Please, if you are a North Carolina fan, direct all of your hate to @GoodmanHoops on all social media channels. Don't send it my way. I got you guys in the mix for winning a national title. Speaking of the ACC, speaking of national championships, we are going to get into a reset of the ACC's offseason. We're going to talk winners. We're going to talk losers. We're going to talk X factors. We're going to talk storylines, Cooper Flag, and we're going to talk about breakout teams. And Jeff, I have one team that is the clear-cut breakout potential team in the ACC. And if you don't agree with me, then you don't know ball. That is coming up next.
Whether you are a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross-country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system.
Welcome back to the Tuesday evening edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. Rob Dauster, Jeff Goodman. We are breaking down the ACC and the winners and the losers of the ACC's offseason. We'll start with the winners, Jeff. And I think that once you get past North Carolina and Duke, who we can talk about here a little bit, there are 3 for me that stand out more than anything else: Louisville, Virginia, and Wake Forest, when it comes to what they were considered to be before this whole offseason cycle started and where I kind of view them at this point now. Do you agree with me on Louisville? Do you agree with me on Virginia? And do you agree with me on Wake Forest?
Yeah, I agree with all those. I would add Georgia Tech maybe to that mix with getting Dago back and adding Javion McCullum. So I might add them as a 4th. But yes, I would say Louisville to me is the clear winner because, frankly, where they were and where they are now, like it's more, again, I'm not sure they're going to be better necessarily than Virginia or Wake. They might be, but they could finish and be an NIT team. But if they're an NIT team, Rob, they still go from where they're the laughing stock of college basketball for the last 2 seasons to where they're at least relevant now. And people aren't making fun of them. And I think they've got a roster that could be an NCAA tournament team. I think, again, they can be anywhere from, it wouldn't shock me if they win a game or 2 in the NCAA tournament to, again, if they're an NIT team. So they're the clear winner here. And, yeah, Wake getting Hunter Salas back when I think he was going to be a, potential late first round, somewhere in that 25 to 40 range was huge for Steve Forbes. And then Virginia, playing the game in the portal and, getting some guys that again, obviously were, Day-Day Ames is a guy that I didn't expect them to be able to get. I love his talent. I think he's different than what Tony Bennett normally gets. So I think he and McNeely back and TJ Power and Worley, give him a chance now after losing Beekman and Ryan Duff.
Yeah, I think that they did – Virginia, that is, did a good job identifying I don't want to say under the radar, but guys that fit what they want to do that maybe didn't put up the numbers at their previous stops that you would expect from someone that stepped into an ACC program being an impact player, like Elijah Saunders at San Diego State, like Day-Day Ames, like TJ Power at Duke. I feel like TJ Power is precisely what you want at the 4 if you are a Tony Bennett coach team. And between him and Isaac McNeely, I think you're going to have 2 of the best shooters in the ACC on that roster. When it comes to Wake Forest, to me, it's simple, right? You get Cam Hildreth back, you get Efton Reed back, you bring in a couple of pretty good transfers. I would say that Tylor Johnson and Omaha Ballou are 2 guys. Omaha Ballou are 2 guys that I think are kind of right in that highly touted recruit. Didn't necessarily have the freshman season they wanted, go to Wake Forest, redeem themselves kind of mold that we've seen have success for Steve Forbes before. And you combine all of that with Hunter Salas is to me, Wake Forest is right there as a top 25 team. And I don't think anybody would have had that once we saw the start of the offseason was Hunter Salas declares, Boopie Miller enters the portal, and Andrew Carr enters the portal. So good for Steve Forbes. And most importantly, the Forbes family is doing well. His wife is doing well. And that is always great to hear. UNC or Duke, I'm putting you on the spot. You got to pick one of them. You got to take all of the money that you're going to get from selling your house and bet it on one of those 2 to have a better season, more wins, deeper tournament runs, more success. Who are you backing?
Duke. Yes, hell yeah for me. I don't know. I just feel better about them. I think the pieces fit. I don't think they have a major flaw. I think they've added some nice culture program type guys like Mason Gillis to surround Cooper Flagg and obviously Tyrese Proctor, and I'm sure we'll get to the X factor in the ACC. And I don't want to give it away, but yeah, it might be that 6'5".
I don't want to give it away. I'm just going to give it away.
Yeah, give it away because it is Tyrese Proctor. I mean, he's the X factor, not just in the ACC. He might be the X factor along with Cooper Flagg in college basketball. Like those two. And again, Cooper Flagg's just so special because, as you kind of alluded to earlier, like all the things that don't show up necessarily in the box score, all the little things that he does to make his teammates better and give his team a chance to win. He's an elite passer. He's not going to average 20 a game. He's just not. But he's going to rebound his position. He's going to be a really good defender who will block shots. And he's a high IQ player that, again, you don't need, like, you're going to run a lot through him, but he's also a guy that can play so many different roles for a team. Like, that's the beauty of him, his versatility as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I'm mostly with you, but it all, like, to me, it really comes down to what we're going to get out of Tyrese Proctor or Caleb Falls. Like, you don't know who the point guard is going to end up being there. And it's going to take a lot for me to look at a team that has RJ Davis, that brings Elliot Cadeau back, that was able to get Seth Trimble to come back from the portal, that added a guy as talented as Cade Tyson, that brings in a freshman like Ian Jackson and a freshman like Drake Powell, that went out and solved some of their issues in the front court by getting Van Allen Lubin from Vanderbilt. Like, I really, really like this North Carolina team. I really, really like the idea of building a roster around RJ Davis again. I really, really like the idea of a sophomore year Elliot Cadeau being able to set the table for RJ. I'm very high on both. I think both of these teams are top 8 in college basketball. So I don't think
I'll just say this about Carolina, man. I will just say this. The impact that Harrison Ingram and Cormac Ryan had a year ago on this program and this team cannot be understated, Rob. And
you're not wrong.
See him without those two.
You're not wrong. All right. The losers of the offseason. Can I just start and say Cal and Stanford having to play in a league where they're the only teams on that side of the country, like, is just, what are we doing, man? We have two teams that are quite literally on the Pacific Ocean playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Like, what the hell is going on in the world of college athletics that this is something that is happening? It is just, it's a world we live in.
Who's your biggest loser? Who's your real biggest loser? Not just Cal and Stanford because they got to go in this league, but what team? For me, it's Miami, clearly.
I was gonna go there, and then they got they brought Matthew Cleveland back from the portal. They added somebody. Like, I'm with you there. I have two that I have above them though, and it was the Pitt Panthers losing Blake Hinson, losing Bub Carrington after 1 year. And not really bringing anything of note in from the portal. And the other one was Virginia Tech. Like, they saw Sean Padula transfer out. Hunter Couture graduated. Lynn Kidd graduated. They lost a bunch of, like, their program guys. Rodney Rice left the program. And I think that they got a couple of decent players out of the portal. Like, your boy, Ben Burnham, is going to be at Virginia Tech next year. But this is not what I thought it would be in year 5 of the Mike Young tenure at Virginia Tech.
But why? What's the biggest reason for that?
They don't have the NIL.
Correct. They don't have it. So, Mike Young, when he can out-evaluate and out-recruit guys, is different. Out-develop guys. But now, the current landscape kills a guy like Mike Young at Virginia Tech. Absolutely kills him. Miami, for me, is a clear loser. They lose Norchad Amir, Wooga Poplar, who, again, I'm not saying Wooga was great last year. He really wasn't. He was underwhelming. But you replace him with Jalen Blackman from Stetson. Nice player, like Lynn Kidd, nice player. They also lost Bensley Joseph. So I would say to me, it's Miami that I think has now gone from a program that we talked about even going into last year as like a potential, I don't know, Final Four sleeper-ish maybe last year, to now we're like, are they even an NCAA tournament team this year? Is this
They weren't a Final Four. They weren't a Final Four sleeper at all last year. They were like a team that we were talking about with a legitimate chance. They were a top 10 team at one point because they were coming off of a Final Four.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be nice here. But yes, they had high expectations. They were probably as big a disappointment as almost any team in the country a year ago. And now I get it. Like, hey, you got to flip this thing. But I think North Chad is a culture guy, a toughness guy, a production guy, all of it. And I think they're going to miss him immensely.
Yes, I agree. Listen, we got to get to a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about that Cooper Flag storyline. We're going to talk about that Tyrese Proctor X Factor storyline. We got a couple breakout teams, breakout players to talk about in the ACC. More offseason reset from the Atlantic Coast, the National Coast, the Both Coast Conference now coming up next.
By now, you guys have surely heard about Autograph, an app founded by Tom Brady with the intention of disrupting the way that fans consume content covering their favorite teams. Here's how the app works. All of the podcasters and bloggers and digital creators covering a team have their content sent to that team's page in Autograph. Instead of having to bounce from site to site or try to navigate the only safe for work spaces that are left on X, you just scroll through Autograph. This isn't a hard sell. This is the truth. I'm a UConn fan. I use the Autograph app to keep up with the writers I read and the pods that I listen to. The best part is that every piece of content that you consume gives you reward points. The more you get, the more chances you have at things like discounted tickets and signed memorabilia. Here's the best part. We've partnered with Autograph to donate $1 to the V Foundation every time someone downloads the app using the code F68, with a minimum of $2,500 getting donated. The app is free, so download using the code F68 and help us raise some money and give Autograph a try. I promise you it will be worth it. And while we're here, a quick reminder, make sure that you subscribe to the Daily. We have new landing pages with deep dives into each coaching change, as well as a tracker that provides scouting reports on the transfers that have entered the portal that you are going to want to know about. It's just $50 for the year, which means that for less than $1 per week, you get analysis that our insiders send direct to your inbox every single morning. Hit the link below to subscribe.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark here on Tuesday night. We are live streaming on YouTube and streaming over on Stadium. Rob Dauster and Jeff Goodman here. Let's talk about some of the X factors in the conference. I think the obvious one is Tyrese Proctor. We can talk about that a little bit. I don't think we have to dive too much into it because people kind of understand. But I have another X factor in this league. I'll be curious to hear your opinion on. But give me your Tyrese Proctor spiel here to start.
Yeah, I mean, listen, just don't build them up. Like, I feel like you put the curse on him last year and all the expectations and everything like that. So we're going to try not to do that this year. I'm going to try to let Tyrese just kind of do his thing. But, I think certainly Tyrese, the way he went out last year too in the NCAA tournament, in the Elite Eight game, he was terrible. So I think hopefully it's going to eat him up here. And hopefully he's going to come back with a little bit more fire. And I do think playing with Cooper Flag is going to really take some pressure off Tyrese Proctor, because really what Duke was missing in a lot of ways last year was a guy who made people better, made life easier for everybody. That wasn't Jared McCain. Jared McCain is a scorer, right? Tyrese Proctor is more of a scorer than a facilitator. I think with Cooper Flag, he just makes everybody around him better. He'll take on the pressure because nobody's going to be talking about Tyrese Proctor this year, going into the year. They're going to all be coming in, talking to Cooper Flag. It's Cooper Flag, this, that, and the other. And Proctor can honestly go into it with a little bit less pressure than he did a year ago. And I think, is he going to be what we thought he was going to be? I don't know if that's ever going to be his personality, but he's going to have a good year this year. And a good year, and Caleb Foster has a good year, and they get some of their other dudes, to play well. Malik Brown, I think, was a good addition. For them. Again, I talked about Mason Gillis and Sion James coming over from Tulane.
Sion James is the one, man. It's Sion James, he is the guy that is going to surprise a lot of people And I don't know if we can call him a breakout player, but he's going to be the guy that surprises a lot of people in the league. My X factor isn't a player. My X factor is a team. I don't think we're talking enough about SMU. I think that there is a lot of talent on that roster. Yeah, they landed Boopy Miller. They have Chuck Harris. They brought Chuck Harris back. And then they have Cario Aquindo, which if you can give me those three in a backcourt, I think that is a lot better than people realize how good that backcourt is. They landed Matt Cross from UMass, who's one of my favorite kind of like glue guy, toughness guys in college basketball. They brought in Johan Traore, who had a nice bounce back year at UC Santa Barbara, was a former top 25 recruit, didn't have a good first season at Auburn, and now is getting another chance at the high major level. And I think if you give me those five with, they got a couple pieces coming back. AJ George is coming in, Jarrell Colbert coming in. I think that there's enough pieces there for them to be somewhere in the middle of the pack of the ACC. And if you're in the middle of the pack of the ACC and you don't do anything dumb in non-conference and you give yourself a shot at knocking off a Duke or a North Carolina or somebody at the top of the league, you get them once, you're going to have yourself in a position where you might be able to get into the NCAA tournament. I think that they are close. They're probably an NIT team, but I think they got a tournament chance. And I don't think most people realize that SMU has a tournament chance this year or would even give them credit for it.
Yeah, I think they're an NIT team. There's only one X factor really that we need to talk about, and that's TJ Power. I mean, let's be honest here. He's the only X factor that matters in this whole equation. All
right, so let's get into the biggest storyline. Yeah.
All right. Biggest storyline.
No, I was going to say that let's get into the biggest storyline because to me the biggest storyline outside of Cooper Flag, and we don't have to go let's save that Cooper Flag conversation for another time. But to me, the biggest storyline is, does Tony Bennett have the pieces he needs to get Virginia back to the mountaintop?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think that's certainly up there. I mean, for me, it's it's probably still centered around Duke and can Shire get this team, because he's going to have a lot of expectations on him this year with Cooper Flag, and he knew that recruiting the kid. So I think, can he get them to the Final Four is probably the biggest thing in year 3, because eventually that's what Duke fans want ultimately, right? You're hired there to go to a Final Four. Well, Hubert Davis did it a few years ago, and I think Shire's done a great job in his first 2 years, but that's how you're going to be measured. You're measured by Final Four appearances at a place like Duke, and, this is a year you got the number 1 player in the country. And last year, a top recruiting class didn't carry as much weight for me, but Cooper Flag is the number 1 player in a pretty good recruiting class and a guy that, again, is going to get, so much attention. That I think Shire's got to deliver.
Yeah, I'll say I don't think that this is a pretty good recruiting class. I think it is just it's fine. Cooper Flag doesn't matter what recruiting class he was in. He's Cooper Flag. I get all that stuff with Duke, and also like the North Carolina storyline of RJ Davis coming back first team All-American, all that stuff.
In Louisville. Hey, Louisville's
yes,
a huge
that's exactly where I was going to go with this next, is like on Louisville's chance to bounce back and get back to being a relevant team in this conference. Just how good could they end up being? Like, what is the ceiling for this group? I'm just going to throw the starting lineup at you, right? If you give me Chucky Hepburn at the 1, you give me I'm blanking on who their 2 would be, but you got Terrence Edwards there, you got Rain Smith there, you got Kayshawn Pryor there, you got Ali Khalifa there, you got your boy James Scott there, you got Javon Hadley there. Like there are a lot of good pieces on this roster and some really talented proven players. Corin Johnson. There are a lot of guys that have proven it at certain levels. So I think you said you think that they're going to be like a borderline tournament team. I think they're closer to borderline top 25. Like I really like what Kels has built in this first summer.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a big difference between that. A borderline top 25 to a borderline tournament. You could throw a lot of those teams in a hat, from 20 to 45, and they're similar. Let's be honest. So I think, again, what Kels has done, unbelievable. I mean, obviously they've got NIL, which helps, but they've been able to produce. They went early in the portal and often, and it worked, and they had to. So I think Louisville's a huge storyline here as well. I'm trying to think of any other big storyline.
Give me your breakout player. Give me your breakout player in the ACC and a breakout team.
I mean, to me, it's Stojakovic. Like that's the guy for me that I think is going to have a huge year for Mark Madsen and Cal. I thought it was a great get. He didn't have a great freshman year. I just remember seeing him on the circuit, and I was like, this kid's going to be a stud. So I think he'll go from averaging 8 points a game last year. I think he could be a 15-point-a-game guy for Madsen and Cal this year. And for me, team, I'm probably going to go Georgia Tech. I like what Damon's done there. Again, I like McCollum. They finished towards the bottom, but they had some really good wins last year, if you remember. And Bandango's a stud. Like, he's going to be one of the best big guys, maybe not just in the ACC, but in the country. He averaged I think he averaged 11 and 8 last year. So quietly, very quietly.
Yeah, I don't hate the Georgia Tech call. Andre Stojakovic and TJ Power were the two guys that I had written down as guys I think could be real breakout players in this league. The one I'm going to give you for a breakout team is Notre Dame. After a rough start to last season, they kind of brought it on towards the end of the year. They bring back Braden Shrewsbury. They bring back Marcus Burton, who I don't think people realize was one of the best and most underrated freshmen in all of college basketball. Micah Shrewsbury is a guy that is able to figure things out, right? I think he is one of the more underrated coaches in college basketball when it comes to just coaching basketball. And I think that the pieces that he's added have been pretty good. And I am in on Notre Dame being in that NCAA tournament conversation. What's weird about the ACC this year is I think there are two teams that we can both agree are going to be top 10 teams in college basketball this year. And then there's probably 12 teams that if you sat here and just gave me a spiel and a pitch on why they're going to be a tournament team, I think you could probably talk me into it at a certain point. There's just a lot of
I have no idea, Rob. Again, the Clemsons of the world, right? We have no idea what some of these teams are going to do at the end of the day. I mean, Clemson's one we really haven't talked about, and obviously they got to replace a stud in PJ Hall. But, you mentioned SMU, who knows? I mean, there's just so many of these rosters that you're looking down and you're like, I think they could be good, but BC's not going to be very good. I don't think Virginia Tech will be very good. Like you said, Pittsburgh, I worry about Miami could be down. I mean, we could be talking about the mid-major ACC again. We could.
Yeah, you will be talking about the mid-major ACC for the rest of your life because Syracuse is part of the conference. It's a mid-major program up there in Canada. Listen, this has been the Field of 68 After Dark Tuesdays edition. You can catch over on the Field of 68 YouTube channel right now. We have breakdowns of about 25 different players for this NBA draft. We have a couple more that are going to be coming up here this week. We were able to catch up with coaches of players that don't play in college basketball. We have Randolph Childress breaking these guys down. We have Terrence Oglesby breaking these guys down. So we were able to get a lot of these things covered. Make sure you go check all of that stuff out. It takes a lot of effort, and I do think that these are really good breakdowns. Goodman's got to go.
Great. I need some Dayquil.
Goodman's got to go shotgun Dayquil. Sponsored by Dayquil. This episode of Field of 68 After Dark was sponsored by Dayquil. So for Jeff Goodman, for our producer Trevor, my name is Rob Dauster. We will see you guys over on the YouTube channel with those prospects.